So churches and their flocks are not immune to email scams. And there's one scam in particular that we've seen quite a bit here at Flocknote, specifically designed to exploit churches. And it's a very, very clever one. Hey there, it's Matthew Warner, and this is the Finding Uno Show. Welcome back to the Finding Uno Show. Who's Uno? Oh, you know Uno. He's that one lost sheep the shepherd leaves the 99 to go after, and we are here to help you find him. I'm your host, Matthew Warner. I'm joined by my co-host, Matthew Sewell. Howdy ho, Matt.
Hey, as you can tell, it's getting to be fall up here in the Pacific Northwest, so I had to break out the flannel.
Yeah, rocking the flannel. I need to do that too. But down here in Texas, it's not quite yet flannel weather, but we're getting there, hopefully. All right, so today we are talking about the email scam most likely to hit your church. Because, Toby, when the son of the deposed king of Nigeria emails you directly asking for help, you help him. I mean...
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I mean, if somebody, is promising or asking for money, I mean, you got to send it to them, right? It doesn't matter who it is.
Absolutely.
Especially if, it's the kingship of Nigeria that's hanging in the balance. Right? So it's your pastor that needs the gift cards.
That's right. So we've all had those experiences probably in our own email inboxes where it's obviously a scam, sometimes not so obviously, and these scammers get more and more clever the more time goes on, and they're willing to go to pretty great lengths to try to trick people to get money, get your private information, all those kinds of things. And there's one in particular that we've seen come up a number of times with churches. Since we work with churches and we help them with email, they often turn to us first saying, what happened? And so we figured it was worth doing a show just answering some of that so you can be aware of it, because it may come and hit your church at some point. And if it does, or if it has, you'll maybe know how to respond. Maybe you're finding this after it's already hit and you're wondering what happened or how this works. Today we're going to talk about, we're going to first say, how does this scam work? We're going to talk about the details of how it works. And then we're going to talk about the big mistake that most churches make responding to it. I think probably every church I've seen respond to it has actually made this mistake. And so we're going to help you not make that mistake. And then third, talk about the best way to respond to it. So what should you do and how do you address it? So sound good, Matt?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So first, how does it work? So the typical way we've seen this is you're maybe on staff at your church and somebody comes to you or forwards you an email, usually one of your volunteers or one of your other ministry leaders, somebody involved in some level of leadership at your church, forwards you this email saying, what's this? Father Bob or whoever the pastor is, or someone got a mess is saying they need my help. They're saying they want me to send them. A lot of times we've seen gift cards for whatever reason. We need you to click here and buy a gift card and send it to me. But it can be other forms of financial, click this link to transfer me money on Venmo or PayPal or some of those kind of things too. So usually it's some form of asking for money. And they figured out that if someone gets an email from the pastor of their church, and he's asking for money, there's a good chance that somebody gives it to him because they trust him and they know it's going to go to a good cause. And of course, pastors are always asking for money. So it's not a crazy thing. And so it's a pretty slick scam in that sense. But the initial thought is, oh my goodness, we must have gotten hacked. And so they're worried that somehow someone hacked all our emails and is sending messages out from the pastor to all of our members asking for money. And so that's the assumption going into it. And that here's how it typically works. So number one, you didn't probably get hacked at all. And this is where people come to Flocknote and they say, hey, did someone get into our system? And we're like, no, we look at it all. And not one time has anyone ever been, the victim of a hack or attack in that way. What happens is if you look into the email that they send you, it's usually from some variation of your pastor's email address. So it's some made up one like fatherbob1@gmail.com, or something that they just made up from a free email provider like Gmail or Outlook or something like that. And so they didn't get a hold of his email. They're sending from a totally different email. So, okay, you didn't hack the pastor's email and get into his email account. But how did they get our email addresses? How did they get our members' email addresses to send all of this out? And so this is where at first it might not be, you obviously don't know who all got the email. And so this is where the big mistake comes in that most churches make. Matt, have you seen this at all with any of the churches you've worked with?
Oh, 100%. I've actually been on the receiving end of one of those at my church, and then also had churches near me in the town that I live ask about it too. So yeah, very familiar with it.
Yeah, so I've gotten it as basically each parish I've been a member of over the years uses Flocknote still, and I'm still on their Flocknote list. And so I get their emails, and it's the same for me. I get their announcement of it saying, "Dear parishioners, please don't, if you got this scam email, we did not send it from us. Do not respond to it. Do not click it." Warning everybody. So what they do, and this is the big mistake, is they go immediately to their everyone list, their master list of every member of the church, and they blast out an email saying, "If you get this scam email, please don't respond to it." And so here's why this is a mistake. Number one, it kind of makes all of your members feel like, wow, did we get hacked? Did something happen? Is my information safe with my church? All of those kind of things. And so it sends the wrong message, because typically nothing happened in that way where their information was compromised or hacked. Two, you're making them worry about something that likely 99% of them did not experience. And I'll tell you why. Because the next question is, well, how did this scammer get those emails? And Matt, what are some of the cases in yours where they got them from?
Yeah, so it's almost always going to be publicly available email addresses or even phone numbers. There's been cases where people get a text saying this is Pastor Pat or whatever. So it's always publicly available. And so in the case of me, I actually help with a ministry at my church. And so my personal email was on there, not my Flocknote, my work email or anything like that, but just my personal Gmail address was on the page, saying if you have questions about this ministry, email Matt at such and such, right? And so I got one of these one time, and I was like, oh, okay. It was publicly available on the website. So usually in every single case, whether it's usually on the website, or on social media. I think it would be pretty nefarious if it was on like the actual church bulletin board, the physical bulletin board, and they were going like jotting down.
No, it doesn't happen.
Was in our building or something. No, I don't think that happens. But it's always usually on the website, in the paper bulletin if it's posted on the website, and on social media where they find those.
Yeah, that's right. So, and understand, this is not somebody in your community doing this scam. Probably this is somebody in a third world country that found a church website and knows how to execute this trick. And what they do is just what Matt said, is they go to your website and they have software that just crawls your whole website and grabs every email address off of it, or in some cases, phone numbers. So they're going to crawl your website and grab every piece of information on it. So usually this is all your like leaders, staff, some of your volunteers, people that have been involved in any way, like Matt said, with a ministry where he was the contact for something. So any publicly available email that is associated with your church. So usually it's just crawling your church website, and they're going to grab every piece of contact info they can. And they're going to, so it might only be 20 email addresses or 30 email addresses, depending on how big your church is and how much you got on there. And they're going to send it to all of them from this fake address that is the name of the pastor. And that's it. And so they're going to send that to them and hope that somebody bites and sends them some free money. And so what do we do about it is the question. So that's why sending it to everybody is not necessary, overkill, and creates a worry within your members that is just not necessary. So don't send it out to everybody unless for some reason. So there's some cases, and we haven't actually seen one of these, but sometimes churches will have a whole directory listed on their church website. And here's a directory of all of our members. And it may even be just a PDF download or something like that. But the software these scammers use will go to the church website and crawl every piece of information they can find. So even if it's a PDF that's buried in there, that's just a link to a church directory, they're going to click it. Their bot clicks it, crawls all the information in the PDF, and pulls out every email address it can find. So in some cases, if you did list a publicly all the contact info of your members, then yes, it could have been sent to all of them. But you shouldn't do that, first of all. And second, if you did, then you would need to maybe follow up with everybody if you think that was the case. And so some of it also is when it initially happens is gathering a little information first, find out who got it. So you can send something to all your staff and ask them, did you guys get this? You could ask a few of your regular members and say, did you get this, before you go on. But if you haven't listed all of that stuff publicly, 99% chance it is just your staff and whatever email addresses you've listed for whatever reason on your website. So what you do is you don't freak out, assess who may have gotten the message in this sense. Check for where you've listed any email addresses publicly so you have a sense of who may have gotten it. Then only contact those folks and just let them know. And so you're not freaking out. Most people can, they know that these are scams when they see them. It's not right. And they'll sort of check with the pastor anyways and say, hey, is this really from you? Is this your personal email address asking me for money, before they do anything? And so it's typically not a big deal. Most of the time the scam doesn't work, but the way these scams operate is that if they can do it 1,000 times, there's a few where it does actually work. And so because they have code now that crawls all these church websites, grabs the pastor's name, creates a fake email address for them, grabs all the contact on it. It doesn't take very much work to run one of these. And so it happens a lot. So
I have a question. So I have a question related to that. So the next question that always comes up is, oh my gosh, we need to remove all of the emails from our website, right? Is that a good idea or not?
Yeah, good question. And definitely no. You do not want to remove the email addresses from your website. Again, if you're only listing leadership, contact info and some key volunteers on your website, that's what you want. You don't want to not let people, your members, there's more good that comes from that than the odd bad thing like this. And as long as you've equipped your leaders to know that these kind of things are happening, then there's no reason to take all that off. So yeah, do not get scared about putting your email address on your website. It is very good practice to put it on your website, because you want people to be able to contact you. You want to be available. You want to be able to build those relationships with people and communicate that you're available, not that you're some hard to reach kind of person that's hard to get a hold of, So you want to have your email address on there. Some people will put these forms on the website, like a contact form instead. So that was popular for a while. And a lot of these things were originally implemented because spammers would use them. So not just scammers, but spammers. So they would just crawl any website on the internet, grab an email address, and then start spamming you with all kinds of things. Generally now our spam filters are good enough to keep most of that out of our inbox. And so if you have a good email provider, then it's not really an issue. And so you don't need to resort to just putting a contact form where nobody knows your email address and they fill out a form, it sends it to you, then you can decide to respond or not. Some cases that can make sense, but most of the time that creates an unnecessary barrier. And also sometimes it doesn't work that well, or it's kind of cumbersome for the member who's just trying to reach somebody at the church. So in general, put your email address or your phone numbers up there so people can use them, but just be aware that this kind of thing can happen. Anything else on that,
perfect.
Matt?
Well, I think that's good. I mean, in the case of, in my case, I know kind of the person who oversaw all of the IT and emails and like security and stuff for the group of churches for the diocese in my area had kind of that reaction initially, and that was kind of the resolution. It's like, no, we'd be hamstringing ourselves, like we'd be making it more difficult for the ministry leaders at all of these churches to do their jobs, of being able to relate with people and just give them a really easy route of access, as opposed to, because I think the forms can forward, but somebody might type their email in wrong, or if you get somebody who's really crabby, they're going to put a fake rude email in there or something instead. But but yeah, it just makes the job more difficult for the leaders to remove their emails from the website. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Well, yeah, I think that puts a pretty succinct bow on this particular segment. So hope you tune in next time. Again, subscribe, rate, and review. But before we go, we do have a listener question. So we're going to bump over to our People Got Church Problems segment. All right, our question today is from Sherry. And Sherry asks, what about when some folks say we're not communicating enough and others say that we're communicating too much?
Yeah, great question. So we get this one a lot. And actually, I'm not going to go into all of the ways to address this because we actually just released another podcast episode on this recently, talking about how often should you communicate and what time of the day or week is best, those kind of things, in a whole other episode. So go check that episode out if you want to dive into this one a little further. But in general, I think what kind of comes down to, I think that the thing driving this issue for a lot of churches is the realization that they can't say the same thing, can't say everything to everyone. So churches are in the habit of saying everything to everyone. And so you're constantly trying to find which channel is best to reach everyone, or how often should I communicate so that everyone is happy? What kind of content should I have so that everyone likes it? And it just doesn't work that way. You know, when you're talking about a church community, you have a very diverse group of people. And if you're going to have really engaged people, not so engaged people, totally disengaged people. And each of those are going to, in this case, are going to want a different frequency of communication. So if I'm really engaged and involved, then I need to be getting more information from you. I'm engaged. I want it. I need it for different things I'm doing. But if I'm not that engaged yet, it's going to turn me off if I'm getting too much communication. So there is no right answer to say that's going to please everybody. And that's why it's really important. And this is something we really have designed Flocknote to help you do, but something we are preaching all the time with all of our customers is that you have to get used to segmenting your and targeting your messages better. So if it's so sometimes it's content. So again, if it's an announcement about altar servers, you don't need to announce it on Sunday to everyone. That's a waste of most people's time. You don't put it in your email to everyone each week because it's a waste of most people's time. You send that just to the altar servers, right? So apply that to every single group and announcement. You can generally target it to the group that needs to get it if it's sort of activity based in some way. That's why different groups are important. Getting people into those groups is really powerful. But then you also have engagement issues. So even sending to everyone, you're trying to be pleasing to, and you're trying to please a lot of different types of people. So you have to figure out ways to send different messages to groups of people that are more engaged and send less frequently to people that are not engaged. So when it comes to your regular communication going out, you kind of have to find a common denominator that's going to keep everybody happy. So generally, you don't want to be sending to everyone too often because it will turn off that segment of your community that is just not quite engaged yet, or maybe they're new here, or they just haven't gotten plugged into many things yet. So you got to find ways to filter from that main group down to other types of groups in sending your extra communications that go out to those. And additionally, start using filtering tools like we have built into Flocknote now, where you can actually say, show me everybody who is in multiple groups, and I want to send them a different message. Or show me people who have opened an email recently or haven't opened an email in 6 months. And you can target those groups differently based on what you think they're going to want. So that's kind of the broad answer to that question. But again, check out that other episode and we dive much more deeply into it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sherry, for that question. That is all the time we have for today. But before we end things, we're going to kick it over to our friend Liz to see where Uno is today.
Hey everyone! This week, Uno was found in Batavia, New York. Terry from Ascension Roman Catholic Community sent us this joy-filled photo of their team wearing their brand new Uno tees. And despite the team all staying extra safe and wearing their face masks, of course, we can tell that there are some beautiful smiles under there. If you find Uno, send us your photo, whether it's you or your team rocking an Uno tee or sporting flock socks. Maybe it's a photo of Uno in your church bulletin, or perhaps it's a happy little sheep that you spot somewhere in your town. Take the photo, send it to us at howdy@findinguno.com, and we may feature you. Also, if you have a question for Matt, you can submit it at findinguno.com, or you're able to type the question in directly using a form that we have there, or you can easily leave a voice recording right from our website. That's all we have for today. We'll see you next time on the Finding Uno Show.